We're going to start the call now. And today we have Casey Lee, who is the program director at The Edge up in Williston, Vermont. And he's going to be presenting on empowering your fitness team. So it's always great to hear from, the leaders in our network. Casey was for quite some time one of our master coaches, and we're here today to listen to what he has to say about this topic. So take it away, Case.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks guys for taking the time out of your day. I'm sure if you're like me, you typically sit on these lunchtime webinars and eat your lunch. So I'll get to some questions in the end. If you do have questions, just try to write them down, and we'll do a Q&A section at the end. Ginger, I want to apologize in advance if I drop a couple F-bombs. Just because it does tend to happen, but it's always loving F-bombs. It's never.
You certainly
malicious.
Don't have to apologize to me. I can tell you that.
I'm just a little caution at this. This might be there might be rated F for a couple F words in there. This is a presentation that I'm actually giving in, what is it now? 2 weeks on June 2nd up in New York at a fitness business seminar. And I'm pretty pumped that I get to actually share it with you guys because I think it's very relevant. Obviously, every presentation I give comes with a heavy Parisi bias because that's where I've been and kind of where I think I thrive and where I spend most of my time. So this is kind of a quasi case study of what we've done up here in Williston. Ginger can attest to this. Our Parisi Speed School hasn't always been bright lights and awesomeness for our existence. We're actually just starting. I'm looking at the thing right now. June 4th was our birthday 7 years ago. So we're entering year 8 now. And I think the last 12 months at our Parisi has been the best 12 months that we've ever had. So if you guys have followed me on Instagram or social media or anything like that, I do have a podcast that's actually called Three Things. So that's kind of where the three things comes from. And I work best in threes. So these are the 3 things that I'm going to look to cover here over the next 45 minutes or so. 5-3-1, which is if you're an original strength coach, you've been in the game, you've heard of the program, Jim Lundler's 5-3-1, but 5-3-1 is also a goal setting strategy that I use pretty heavily in most aspects of whether it be coaching, programming, business, even my day-to-day when I'm just kind of looking for trying to get things done around the house or something. 5-3-1 to help identify facility needs, hiring strategies that help improve culture and enhance training environment, and then promoting and monetizing unique staff skills and brands within there. If you guys were on my last webinar, I actually spoke about how you can kind of leverage that last bullet point a little bit more in depth. But it's very important. I feel, especially, everyone's situation is going to be different, but I'm in a health club where I basically can only tap into a youth market. We do 0 adult training in our facility because we have Training for Warriors, which basically runs as a separate entity. So without diving into too many details there, it's very important for me to bring a staff member on and make sure that they have kind of a unique skill set and have kind of an entrepreneurial spirit to promote themselves and help monetize not only our facility, but put extra dollars in their paychecks as well. And I did a whole separate presentation on that. So I'll dive into it a little bit, but it's not going to be the same thing. So this is how I like to start. I took over the facility. I had worked here as a performance coach, assistant program director, co-program director for 6 years. And going into year 7, I had the opportunity presented to me to be the sole program director. The gentleman that I was sharing responsibilities with was moving to a different avenue of the health club, and he actually just recently, Ginge, I think you might like to know this information, he actually just left the company and now is doing a different sales job out in the Philadelphia area. So that might be sweet words for you, Ginge.
Yeah, just make sure you always email anybody, and this is good for anybody on the call. It's just always email Randy and Carol and let them know that, if somebody leaves your facility, those are the ones that will be taking them off of all our proprietary information. So.
Cool. I think I did that when Mike left last year, but I'll double check, make sure everything's off. I took over our facility. We had not hit our income projections for 18 months. leading up to June 2017. We had an EFT going into the summer of $1,200, and after the summer ended in August 2017, we had an EFT of $400. And needless to say, it was definitely kind of an interesting, first 6 months of operations here. I obviously have been in the facility to some capacity management, but we had a coach leave Memorial Weekend of last year, 2017. We had another staff member. She had her second son and was actually going to be a stay-at-home mom, so she was leaving our facility in the beginning of August. We had that original program director step down, so it was just myself. We hit our first income goal. Yep, what's up?
No, you got cut out for a second.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll stop playing with the cord line then. It was myself and 2 coaches. We worked from June all the way through August with just the 3 of us until we made our first hire, and I'll talk about that here shortly. But needless to say, we were in a really tough spot. Staff culture was questionable. We had some poor systems in place. We had minimal systems in certain areas that were even worth talking about. And it kind of left our facility, with a lot of question marks. Upper management was questioning if it was even something they wanted to do. We've always talked about doing a second location, and it kind of stalled that out because there was nothing really to scale. And obviously, for me as a program director, it's hard for me to make money personally if the facility isn't making money, and it's hard to attract staff if I can't pay them what coaches deserve to be paid. And obviously, from the powers that be that are the owners, they're concerned with making sure that they're getting a return on their investment. So it kind of was a little different avenue for me to kind of step back and not look at tactical coaching, but look more about tactical operations as, a facility program director should. So I just wanted to give you guys a little context as to where we're starting in 2017, because it was pretty low, as you can see. So the very first thing I did was I relied on kind of the tactics that I knew that had worked well for me. A very successful personal training career up here, but kind of transitioned into more of a managerial role and kind of working on the business a lot more than actually in the business. So the very first thing I did was go right to 5-3-1. It really might be the least sexy goal setting strategy you ever imply or do. But basically what you're doing is, you can see on the slide here, 5 objectives that you can improve upon, and really that can be anything. If you're trying to translate 5-3-1 into, just doing work at home, if you're putting around on a Saturday, 5 things you can do, whatever it might be. So for me, working as a program director, what I'm really looking for was 5 objectives that I could help to improve our overall facility. Like, we were in the very bottom, there are a lot of question marks. What are the 5 things that I can do to help improve our facility's position? From those 3, I wanted to pick 3 of those 5 that could help us in the short term. We were going into the back half of 2017, and I wanted to make an impact so that we could roll into 2018 with a lot of steam. So I wanted to pick 3 things that would really help us immediately. And then I wanted to pick the one that I could start right now. June 1st came. It's right after Memorial Day. What's the one thing I can do in June to really make a difference in our facility? And then I work backwards. So 5-3-1 turns into 1-3-5. I take that main goal. I work 3 strategies to help achieve that goal, and then 5 tactics for each strategy that can kind of help lay the map to actually take steps into reaching that goal. And I think that's something that a lot of people really miss when they are setting goals. They do a good job of saying, hey, I need to do this. Hey, I want to have an $18,000 month. Cool. That's my main goal. Well, what 3 strategies can help me attain that revenue number? And then within each strategy, what are 5 things I can do to actually get that strategy up and off the ground? You want to take that 3D look at something so that you're able to say, this is what I want, this is how I'm going to get there, and then within that, how I'm going to get there, these are the little steps that are going to mount up over the course of 31 days in the month that's going to allow me to have a chance to actually achieve the goal that I want. And obviously, as trainers, coaches, we always talk about setting SMART goals and having a time limit and things like that. And I think that's great, and that's definitely a very important piece to this, is setting a goal that you can obtain, but making sure that you lay the foundation and you lay the groundwork to actually, do the day-to-day things that will help lead to the goal, I think are really lost, and I think are really kind of overlooked. I mean, it's like I said, it's not sexy, but if you want to have an $18,000 a month, it's more than just breaking up to how much you're going to do per week, but what strategies you're going to do to help actually, start the wheels to move in and get to that position. So looking more to what we were doing up here, the first 5 objectives that we kind of came up with is, one, we want to rebrand for new leadership. We want to tell everyone that, hey, the Parisi Speed School powered by The Edge is different now. We wanted to build a long-term hiring pool, so we started an internship program and actually integrated that with University of Vermont. So we have a steady stream of young talent coming to the facility, juniors, seniors, and graduate students in college that basically have the option to come in and do a coaching internship with us in the summer, in the fall, and in the spring. We've been very fortunate that's worked out really well for us. It definitely took it wasn't just like picking up the phone and saying, hey, we want interns. That was an 18-month process that, we were able to start for this fall. So yeah, I started it last year in June. I knew it was going to be something that I wanted to do, and it was very important to us to have talented young people coming into our facility. And we have that in place. We already have interns for next fall and next spring, and that's a whole nother conversation, but it's definitely something that I recommend everyone look into doing and stick with it, because I was put through the ringer by University of Vermont to make sure we were an adequate site. I know Ginger has internship documents, and Stan Schofield has some great stuff that he does up in Maine. So if you have more questions on that, please just reach out to Ginger. The third thing is we wanted to keep our membership base that we had. So we wanted to really focus on retention. Something that I'm a firm believer on is it's a lot easier to sell a customer on your product than it is to sell a prospect. So we knew we had, a core group of 15 to 20 clients. Obviously, you looked at our EFT number in August. We had a lot of kids expiring after the summer, and it was very important that we figure out a way to retain those clients and kind of keep ourselves in a core niche of individuals that we could market to and build our EFT off of. And then from there, we wanted to have a strong operational culture. And I put operational in parentheses because it wasn't so much about the training. I want to make very clear that our training and the things that we were doing were rock solid. That's probably the one consistent wheel that kept spinning through our toughest times. Is we had our sessions in training management software. We were, kind of getting on board with Train Heroic last fall and beta testing that platform, but we had the training dialed. We weren't doing anything crazy on the training floor. We were going off of the planned sessions. We were going off of everything you guys would see on sites or regional trainings and franchise trainings. We had all of that in place. So it was nice for us as a facility of 3 at the time to look and say, hey, our training is not the problem. Like, the product we're delivering is great, but operationally, making sure our coaches, and for me personally, making sure my coaches knew where they needed to be at the right times, how they were going to greet clients coming into the facility, how we were going to on-ramp clients from the first initial phone call. Those are the things that, when I say operationally, that we didn't have in place. Those systems, that culture, it just wasn't in place. So don't confuse operational culture with actual, like the product we were putting out, because that's one thing Parisi does really well is give you that training content. But I want to make that culture very strong with our existing staff. So when we did have new hires come in, they were coming into a facility that liked each other. We were very friendly and have a great relationship amongst each other, and that's very important to me. And then I want to reconfigure our marketing strategy, and really just what that is a fancy phrase for how do we want to present ourselves to the public. And we're in the biggest health club in Northern Vermont. We're talking 20,000 members. Our building alone will see traffic of 5,000 people a month based off the turf field we have, the pool we have, the Parisi we have, different things like that. So it was really important to me that, one, we want to rebrand, tell the world we have something new going on, but also really how we presented ourselves, attitude, appearance, things like that. It was very important to me. So from there, like those 5 objectives, I wanted to pick 3 objectives that I could do to really finish out 2017. So my time frame was 6 months. I didn't want to just tackle all 5. I wanted to pick the 3 important ones that I thought would position our facility to be in the best stance going into 2018. So I chose new leadership. I wanted to tell the world, hey, this is what we've got going on. I wanted to keep the membership base that we had and really focus on the clients that were in front of us, and I wanted to work on the culture. That was something that I mean, Ginger, you've been to our facility plenty of times to know that it wasn't always bells and whistles up here, and it was tough. Like, I mean, it was really hard for myself included to, you know, come to work some days, and that's not the way you want to live your life. So that was actually, you know, as you guys can see, that was the first thing that I wanted to do right now, was say, hey, you know, me, Joe, Kyle, we're the three that are here. You know, like, let's talk about what we need to do as a staff to make sure that we can make this place the best place for us. We know the training is solid. What we're delivering is great for our clients. Now let's be selfish and let's figure out how we can make this place work well for us. And that's really how the conversation started. And I can kind of, you know, talk about that. And obviously you see the title, like, you know, empowering your fitness team. And yeah, I thought this was about building a team of superheroes, and it absolutely is. And I want to, you know, just kind of reiterate that point right here of building a strong operational culture, and a strong culture with your staff is going to give you a staff of superheroes. And that's something that I firmly believe we have now, 4 superheroes plus myself, up here in Vermont.
Hey, Kate, so, I got to just add something to that slide, because this, I think it's very cool that you're doing this presentation, because talk about a team that really has done a turnaround. I remember the first time I visited up there, it was several years ago. And I remember I had an individual meeting with each one of your staff, and you were not at the helm at that point. But
no, I was a performance coach the first time you came up here.
Yeah. And I remember sitting down with a girl, and, you know, I just wanted to kind of get a feel how everybody was doing and how they liked it. And I just sat down and I said, so, you know, how are things going here? And she just burst into tears. So,
oh man, I remember that.
I'm like, oh my gosh, am I making this girl cry? But no, she was just crying about her situation, and she felt like she could actually now kind of vent about it. But anyway, I just had to share that, because you know what, you know, you guys, you've done a great job of turning everything around.
Yeah, you know, this is something, and I struggle with this presentation, because honestly, like, anytime I give a presentation and no one gives a fuck what you have to say about yourself. Like, that's just really it. People, you know, and I don't blame you guys. You're probably sitting there, you're like, how does this affect me? What is this? You know, this isn't maybe what's going on here. Maybe some points resonate with you. And that's really the point I want you guys to take home is, hey, like, maybe we need to look at, you know, how we hire. Maybe we need to look at how we go about, you know, managing and cultivating staff. You know, if you've ever, and I do this probably every year, and when I go into a review of a staff member, I say, would I hire the staff member again? And if the answer is yes, cool, awesome, here are the reasons why I would. And if the answer is, you know, no, or if I have to really think about it, I want to identify in that point, you know, is that something that I can work on with our staff? And, you know, I think it's just like if we had a kid in our training sessions that wasn't necessarily understanding how to skip, we wouldn't just fire the kid and say, well, you can't skip, get out of our facility. Well, no, you work with the kid and you teach them the different principles of how to swing their arm and hit the ground and lift their leg. Like, that's the same thing with coaches. You know, if they're not understanding something, we really want to look at ourselves and say, hey, is this something that we can fix with that person? Is this something that I can coach that person to get better? You know, or is it a cultural issue that they just don't fit? You know, and that's something that you have to kind of identify and work from. But I think it's really important that you guys kind of identify different things that you can take out of this and kind of bring to your own facility. I just wanted to kind of share as to how we have turned our facility around pretty substantially in the last 12 months. So getting back onto what we're doing here, 3 strategies to achieve our goal. Again, we're working backwards now. 3 strategies to help pick our one goal or achieve our goal of building a strong culture. First thing we did was implement weekly staff meetings and coaching in services. Those are 2 separate things, and I'll talk more about that here in a minute, but that's a weekly staff meeting and a weekly coaching in service. The second thing I did was identify staff strengths, and then figured out how to best use them in our program, whether that's coaching personalities, whether that's coaching skill sets as to prior experience, whether that's just really, and this is where that last presentation I gave comes into play, it's just, hey, who do you want to work with? You know, is it adults? Is it kids? Is it golfers? Is it the young female athletes in our facility? Is it the older, you know, high school, college, you know, males in our facility? I don't know, but let's figure that out. Let's have a meeting and let's talk about it one-on-one. And then this is huge, and this is probably where it can be the most awkward, is clearly lay out staff expectations. You know, and that's something that we'll talk more here on the next slide as to how that happens, but a lot of times, and when I would go and travel and do certifications for Parisi, I'd have conversations with the program directors and owners, and I would say, well, what do you expect from your staff? And they would tell me what they expected from their staff, but very rarely when I asked the question, well, did your staff know this is your expectations? They wouldn't have an answer for that. Or they would say, well, they should know. And if you have to guess if someone knows something, they probably don't know. That's just, even with just coaching kids. If someone's just trying to if they should just assume, or you're hoping that they can assume what you want, that's not how you want to run your business. That's not how you want to have your staff set up. So I clearly laid out what our expectations were from each staff member, whether it be appearance, whether it be the communication they had with an athlete, the communication they had with a parent, or the communication they had with each other, how they were to conduct themselves on the floor and different things. Like you said, it was something that has nothing to do with the training itself. The training was rock solid, but just expectations outside of the training sessions as to what time they showed up, how, they checked in, checked out of the facility, different things like that. So the 5 tactics to complete each strategy. So we break down each strategy now here, looking at implementing weekly staff meetings and coaching in services. And like I alluded to on the last slide, articulate the difference between a staff meeting and a coaching in service. So that was really important to me. On Mondays, we meet as a staff from 2 to 3 o'clock for a full hour. If you guys have ever read the book Death by Meeting by Patrick Lencioni, it's the same author of 5 Dysfunctions of a Team. That's kind of how we structure our staff meetings. If you've never heard of that book, write it down, because it's one of the few books that I've actually read that I reread. I'm rereading it right now as we go into our busy summer. But making sure we have meaningful staff meetings is very important to me. We meet as a staff. There's an agenda sent out on Friday after we have our coaching in service on Fridays, and making sure that, through the weekend, should anything come up, we're able to address it. But we have a meaningful staff meeting on Mondays, and then we do a coaching in service on Friday mornings. It's kind of a fun way to start the day. No one wants to work too hard on a Friday, so Fridays at 10 o'clock, we come in as a staff, and we learn. We learn from each other. We have people come in. Our coaching in services are now open door. We have people from other come in, and they learn from us. And it's done nothing but help improve our position as community leaders, as experts in the field, especially in a very tight niche community like Northern Vermont is. That's probably one of the better marketing things that we've done, because people now talk about us. People have presented us with different public speaking opportunities, because they know that we're in it for the long haul and we're in it for the right reasons. And that's a whole nother conversation again, but I wanted our coaches to know that on staff meeting days, we talked operations, and on coaching in service days, it was about getting better as coaches. That's what every coach wants. Hey, let's talk about programming. Let's talk about assessment. Let's talk about communication skills with different types of clients, whatever it might be. But we broke it up so that way I know when I walk into my Monday staff meeting, we're talking about scheduling changes. We're talking about coaches' time off. We're talking about teams starting up, teams wrapping up, how we want to handle that. And then coaching in services, we're kind of talking X's and O's as far as program goes. From there, I created a template structure for those meetings. So that way we knew, or really for me, it keeps that kind of the meetings consistent, and it keeps it quick for me to send out agendas each week. And then we created a content calendar for coaching. One thing that we did that changes, you'll see that's bullet point number 4, is it's required that each coach presents once a quarter to us. And that's for a number of different reasons. A couple big ones being, one, I want all my coaches to be competent public speakers. I think that's very important. If you can't speak to the people you work with well, it's going to be very hard for you to speak to people you don't know well if you're at a PTA meeting, if you're meeting with an athletic director, or if you are presented with an opportunity to present and get paid for it outside of the facility. You want to make sure you're really good at that skill. And the other thing it does is it keeps your coaches active in getting better at anything that they want. Whether that be Coach Shannon with athletic training, whether that be Coach John with basketball, or myself with communication style, or if it's Joe with golf, or Kyle with runners. Like they can research whatever they want. It can be on a book they read, programming. I don't really care, but the coach is required to present once a quarter to us and teach us something that's going to make us better coaches. And that falls right into our content calendar, which does align with seasonal changes. So we spent a lot of time over the last month getting everything dialed in for our college summer program, whether that be the assessment, the programming, zone coaching, communication styles in a small group setting, like all these different things. We align it with seasonal changes so that I know that my staff is the most prepared that they're going to be when the seasonal rush hits, or how to kind of deal with a seasonal low like we've been in. It just kind of helps keep everyone moving forward, which is something that I heard a lot from our staff when I took over was, hey, we're spinning the wheels and we're in a rut. And I wanted to make sure we had the pieces in place so that our coaches could feel like they're always taking a step forward. And then from there, the coaching in-service that we do every Friday provides content to our internship program. So our interns are not allowed to come to staff meetings because our coaches are their site supervisors. So it's my chance to talk with a coach who's supervising one of our interns without the intern present. But the interns are allowed to come to our coaching in-service, which is a big draw to us being able to get good talent into our facility for free, which is even better, but they are a part of our staff, so to speak. So, whenever we interview an intern, we actually do it at our coaching and services. So they come in, they can see what all our staff is like, they can see coaches present, educate, teach, and if you're trying to attract talented young people into your facility for paid positions, showing them what your team is like, showing them how much fun you're having, and showing them that you're actually interested in their well-being and having them learn, it has been the best way for us to attract really talented interns into our facility. So I definitely recommend just kind of looking at that, especially if you want an internship program, if you want to kind of jack your internship program up and make it a little bit better. It's been very well received since we've kind of made that baked into how we conduct our internship program. Next strategy was to identify staff strengths. So this is something that I think is really, really, really underutilized. And I don't just mean setting up one-on-one meetings, but setting them up off-site. When I meet with my coaches privately, it's out of the facility. And it's almost required at this point that, outside of a brief 5 to 15-minute conversation, if we're going to sit down for an extended period of time, I want it to be at a Starbucks. I want it to be at a sandwich shop. I want it to be at, someplace we're going to be. I don't care if it's outside on a park bench, but someplace where I let the coaches pick, hey, where are we going to meet up? If they don't care, it's typically going to be a coffee shop. But I say, hey, where do you want to meet up? And let's do it, because I want them to be in an environment where they feel comfortable. And because those conversations can get pretty real. So I want them to feel the most comfortable that they can be. They pick the offsite location, and we meet for anywhere from 30 to 60 minutes. And we just kind of have a conversation. The second thing I would recommend to all the program directors and owners or people who are in positions to manage other people is you want to be very direct with your communication and ask what you need to know. My favorite question is, what do you need for me to be successful? And then the follow-up question, if they're like, oh, I don't really know, like, well, what is successful to you? What does success to you mean, Shannon, who's an athletic trainer? You're in a performance facility, you have a unique skill set. What is it being successful to you? And then I like to ask the question, what skill do you bring? What characteristic do you bring to the team? And I ask that question every time because it does change. And I love how it does change for coaches. They might say, well, I bring energy. And then they might say, like, well, I've actually been working on assessing shoulders with this class that I was taking or this product I was reviewing or something like that. And now I'm bringing this to the team, and it just gets them kind of able to talk about themselves in a very positive manner, which, is important. We do have tough conversations, and that's, a certain time for that. But I want my coaches, when they have private one-on-one meetings, to know that, hey, these meetings are about me getting better. It's not about my direct report, my boss, my director coming down on me, telling me how much I suck at whatever. Like that had to go. And that was one of the first things I changed when we did have these meetings. Is they used to be, oh, great, I'm meeting with the program director and he's going to tell me I should have sold more, I should have made more money, I didn't retain this many clients. And yes, those conversations will happen, but they happen differently. They don't actually happen in this conversation. Because that's not what the point is. The point is about, again, empowering your fitness staff. And I found that I very rarely have to have those conversations now with coaches at all, because when coaches feel good about where they're going, what they're doing, and they know where they're supposed to be when they need to be doing stuff, then everything just falls into place. Clients are re-signing, coaches know when to ask for the re-sign, coaches know how to ring it up. There's no awkward, like, oh, let me go get my director so they can run your credit. Like, that doesn't exist. So, figuring out how to best communicate with your staff is critical. Because each staff member is going to communicate very, very, very differently, and that's totally fine. And that gives you guys as directors or owners or even staff members something to learn about, because, I'm about as extroverted and outspoken as they get. And I have a coach on staff who is the exact opposite of me in every form and way. And I've had to really work on myself to make sure I'm communicating with him the best that I can be, to make sure he's engaged in what we're trying to do here. Moving on here. What are staff members' educational background? Coach Joe's an entrepreneur major, Coach Kyle's an ex-science major, Coach Shannon's an athletic trainer. So, understanding that each one does have a little bit of diversity in their background is a leverage for me. It's awesome. It helps me knowing that Joe's an entrepreneurial type guy, bouncing new program ideas off of him. Kyle is kind of our ex-science nerd on staff, so talking to him about programming. Shannon's an athletic trainer, which I know very little about, but I know she's our person who bridges the gap from our physical therapy and performance, and that's awesome. What strengths are missing, and that's where figuring out who to hire next comes into play. That was kind of the first hire we did was Shannon as an athletic trainer. We had 3 strength coaches. One, myself included, being a CSCS, working a lot on offsite at colleges. Kyle being our exercise science guy, and Joe kind of being more of like the entrepreneurial type, businessy guy. What was missing was rehab. We had a lot of kids coming, I rolled my ankle. I don't want to start until my ankle's better. Well, shit, we can't have that, So, we brought on Shannon at that point, kind of saying, hey, this is the need that we have. What do you think? And, interviewing a few people and obviously vetting her in the program and going through the hiring process, that was a strength that was missing for our staff. And it was a no-brainer addition when we were looking to add our first coach in last September of 2017. And then again, when I look at staff strengths, looking at the coaches, where do you want to be in 1, 3, and 5 years? That's very important too. Do you see yourself coaching? Do you see yourself in a position of management? Do you see yourself, in a PT clinic or working kind of hybrid between performance and rehab? I don't know. But if I don't ask those questions, how am I ever going to know? That's something that I think we should all be priding ourselves on, is Parisi can open a lot of doors for people, whether it is in sport management, whether it is in rehab, whether it is in performance, whether you want to be a career coach. Parisi can offer that, and making sure your coaching staff knows that there are career opportunities long term. It's not just a quote unquote stepping stone position, is very important, whether that be positions with Parisi corporate, whether that be positions with your Parisi. If your Parisi is within a different entity, like we're within a health club, one of our guys, Coach Joe, was just promoted to the site supervisor for adult fitness here. And he splits time between Parisi and adult fitness now. And that's awesome. And the skill sets he was able to gain from working in Parisi, helped open those doors. So, I think it's very important that we let our staff know, again, that we're here for them, and the skill sets that we can provide as, again, structural operational culture is going to help benefit them. And that's going to, especially if you guys on the line here work with young people, the infamous term millennials, which I want to throw a rock at people who just, trash millennials. It's a communication thing. You just have to figure out how to best communicate with the individual. And if you want to classify them based off of the age, you're really going to miss out, because that just means that each individual learns it their own way. Each individual communicates in their own way. And as a manager, leader, position in your facility, that's your job, is to figure out how to communicate best with your staff. Because just because you understand something one special way doesn't mean everyone else in your staff is going to understand it the same way. Rant over. On to the next slide. Last strategy was to clearly lay out staff expectations. And I want to spend a little time on this one, because this is probably the number one thing that when I pick up the phone, like I was alluding to with how, I talk to different coaches on staff or whatever it might be, this is something that a lot of people kind of don't want to do or think that they do, and they don't do it very well. So the very first thing was I rewrote the job descriptions. I took over in June of 2017. The very first thing I did was rewrite the job descriptions to what I needed a coach on my staff to do. I included a sample day, when the coach arrives, what the coach does in that time before classes start. When the coaches start, well, this is where they're going to be. This is how class is going to transition from hour to hour. And when their session is done at Parisi, this is how they check out of the day. And then as a team, we created a code of conduct. What Coach Joe wants from me, what I want from Coach Joe, what Coach Kyle wants from both of us, whether that be, if you're in a session, don't seagull manage and come through and take a dump on them and say what they're doing wrong and move on to the next thing. Basically asking the question, how would you want someone to act in your facility with you? Right? We're at work. How do you want your coworkers to act? And it really gave us an idea of what our staff members wanted from each other. And we wouldn't know unless we asked that question, and it wasn't, bad stuff. It was just saying like, hey, yeah, when I'm coaching a session, like I'd rather not have someone come up and talk to me because I want to really focus on my session right there. Talk to me during water breaks. Like if you have something to say to me, come up during a water break. Okay, cool. Hey, I would rather, do a cool down as a group or, have another coach with me for the cool down. So that way I can really focus on coaching each kid or giving coaching feedback or whatever it might be. Like these are things that we asked and we did it as a team. We created. And then we have mid-year and yearly reviews of all staff members, including myself. I review coaches review me, and my review from the coaches actually goes to my health club general manager, and it's done anonymously. So I have no idea who writes what about me. My GM actually doesn't know who writes what, but she just sees the feedback, and then she actually meets with me about that feedback, and it's relayed back down to the staff, and I obviously have no idea who wrote what. We do quarterly one-on-one meetings. That actually should be changed. We do monthly one-on-one meetings with each staff member and myself. And then accountability by all, no matter what. And that's something that is just so important, that if I'm going to write the job description and if we're going to review each other, that we're able to actually hold each other accountable to what we want to do. And that's why I actually just changed from the quarterly one-on-one meetings to monthly one-on-one meetings, because that's how we're able to do it pretty quickly. If we notice trends in behavior, we know trends in just kind of how our staff is kind of going with like just the energy in the room, we're able to address it individually pretty quickly. So nothing really gets magnified, and coaches actually really embrace the one-on-one meetings like I talked to a couple slides ago. It's been awesome. And, over communication, you could read some books and say over communicating is bad, but over communicating with purpose, I think, is very good, especially when you work in such a fast-paced environment like the health and fitness industry, making sure that you're taking the time, the due diligence to make sure your staff is all on par with what your expectations are and with what their expectations are of each other. So another three things, hiring strategy. And this, I put this in here because this was a question I get just, I was talking to some people over the last month or so leading up to this and some other Parisis, and they say, well, we just, it's hard to hire people. It's hard to find people, and, we find that we have to just react to just whatever people we can get that apply. And these are kind of the three things that I ask myself whenever we go into hiring a person. One, and I love this quote from Pete Dupuis, a co-founder of Cressy Sports Performance, says, "I don't need another Eric Cressy, I already have one." I heard that in my first CSP fall seminar in it was probably 2014, and I was like, that's pretty spot on. Like, if you already have a basketball guy, you don't need another basketball guy. I have an athletic trainer. I don't really need another athletic trainer. I've got one. I don't really need another guy who likes golf because I already got one of those guys on staff too. So we really look at what we don't have and look into that avenue to hire someone. The existing staff actually gets final say as someone coming on board. So when whether it be an intern or an employee, we do group interviews. The first interview is done with one coach on staff, and then if that coach deems that person's pretty good, the second interview is with the whole group. If there's any questions after that second interview, I'll meet with the coach privately, or hire prospect, I guess, prospective coach privately, but then I'll throw it out to the staff and kind of say like, hey, what did you think of this person? And we're actually going to go, the next time we do a hire, we're going to bring both candidates in to interview at the same time in front of the group. So kind of a group interview, you know, kind of set up there. So I think it's very important, because if we're going to add energy, if we're going to add a personality to our staff, something that's very important to me is our staff environment and our coaching environment. I want to make sure our staff is on board with whoever comes in and is going to be in addition to that energy. And then again, the third point kind of echoes that, is, will this person enhance our culture? We're at the point where we're very lucky that our last 2 hires have been, our 3, oh, no, Shannon wasn't an actually intern, but no idea what that sound is.
You know what?
Come enjoy all 3 locations of Crossgates Family Fitness. Our original location for the entire family is located on North Military Road. Our multi-purpose location with indoor swimming pool and outdoor water slide is located on Gauze Boulevard. And our executive fitness-only facility is located on Pontchartrain Drive. Pick the location that works best for you, or select a membership that includes all 3.
Andy, mute yourself.
Yeah, we're on hold with her. She put us on hold. So I just texted her.
Have you seen Crossgates lately? We are always improving our facility. Our multi-million-dollar renovations and upgrades have kept all 3 locations fresh, clean, and modern. You'll love our contemporary look and feel. We want to always provide our members with the best experience, and that includes up-to-date cardio equipment, weight training, class options, and childcare. With over 35 years in business, Crossgates still keeps getting better every year.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. All right. So those are my 3 pieces of advice on hiring strategy. And it kind of coincides with, again, the big thing I was trying to do is just improve our staff operations, and hiring was definitely a big part of that. 3 of our 4 coaches have been interns. So it's a lot easier to vet someone through a 10 to 16 week internship program. But when we hired Shannon, we actually interviewed her as a staff. And then we met privately to discuss pros and cons, and then we had her come in and shadow for a couple days to make sure she understood kind of what we were and what we aren't. And then we made a decision to give her an offer here at the facility. Not everyone has the luxury of hiring from an internship program, but what I would do is make sure that you kind of identify needs you need to fill, and then find prospective coaches to fill that need. And when you're presenting that need to an individual, again, you're starting the clearly lay expectations, and that person's going to be pretty excited knowing that, hey, like, you guys are hiring someone to specialize in athlete rehab. Like, no one else does it on staff. That's a void that you clearly are looking to fill because you have enough attention for it. Yeah, I'm in. Like, that's a no-brainer when you're trying to attract, talented people to come on your staff. And look at that. That's a picture of Coach Shannon right there. Like I said, we were looking to merge sports performance with sports medicine, and she fit the bill for that. She actually came recommended from a longtime athlete in our program who's in the same major as her. And yeah, I kind of just alluded to how she kind of came about. Same thing with Coach John. He was our last intern last fall. He was so good during his internship program. All of our staff members literally wanted to keep him on board. And he came from internship programs at Dartmouth and University of Vermont. So he has the experience in a college market, which is emerging for us with some local Division II school. So he fills a need for us with that emerging and expanding market. It was a no-brainer. We got a guy on staff who has 1,000 hours of collegiate D1 experience, has a CSCS and is really interested in that realm. Like, yeah, that's a no-brainer for us. And when we present that to Coach John, he's pretty excited about that, and he's been great since. So again, just kind of using our 2 examples here of identifying a need and presenting that need to the individual. And then really the only questions there is, Are they going to match our staff culture? Are they going to be fits with what we've currently got going on? We were lucky John was a 16-week internship with us, or intern with us, so we kind of knew what we were getting with John, and he knew what he was getting with us, and it's worked well. And then again, I won't talk too much about this because we are kind of wrapping up time here, and this is what my last presentation was on. But really making sure our personal brands align with what we've got going on here, meaning, you know, if whether it be even my thing, the Three Things podcast, my own website, this has positioned myself as a local leader up here in Northern Vermont. You know, whether it be interviewing coaches for the teams that I work with, whether it be, you know, interviewing, you know, people with more global reach like Dr. John Russin, a pretty well-known physical therapist who I think Bill's actually had conversations with. You know, these are just positioning us as local leaders and as coaches who quote unquote give a shit, I think, which is very important and kind of a lost art around this industry, is people who are just actually in this because they like to coach. Coach Joe runs Vermont Golf Performance out of our facility. He is really into golf and working with adults and youth athletes in that regard, and we're happy to have him running that program out of our facility as extra income for the facility and himself. And again, 12 months later, after having that, you know, pretty terrible August and revenue and whatnot, we were top 10 finishers in November of last year, February of this year, and we've got a shot to be in the top 10 for May of 2018 as well. But we finished Q1 at 137% of our projected gross revenue. So again, like Ginger said, it wasn't always bells and whistles up here. We literally had coaches crying, talking to her. We had pretty shitty culture, but using that 5-3-1 strategy, as well as you know, just kind of taking a step back and looking at things that we really needed to fix, and making some great strategic hires to complement our business, add revenue to our business, and make sure our coaches kind of knew what was expected of them, has changed the game for us. You know, like, we hang out as staff. You know, we had a 5K last weekend, and coaches came back to my house afterwards, and we had a barbecue, and it was a great time. You know, like we're friendly. Like, we're in it to win it. That's kind of an expectation that's laid on our coaches, and they can kind of tell when interns even come in that these people actually like each other and actually spend time with each other. Yeah, I don't know how to get out of this, but yeah, so that's kind of what I got. Gigi,
okay,
back to you.
Well, I'm just unmuting those. So Brennan, I just unmuted you, and Mandy, I just unmuted you. So if you don't have any questions and you are in a loud area, keep yourself muted. But we'll open it now to anyone. Actually, what I'm going to do is just kind of, we don't have too many on the call. Is there anyone that has any comments or questions for Casey? All right. Well, good.
I have a question, I guess.
Go ahead.
This is Brennan in Chicago. You know, Casey, since you had that relationship with is it the University of New Hampshire, you said?
Yeah, University of Vermont.
Or University of Vermont, my apologies. How long have you seen the onboarding of the interns? You know, what's the kind of hour allotment that you feel is needed to feel confident with your interns, assisting in classes or leading ADWs? How long are you finding that takes?
Absolutely. Well, our interns actually don't do anything, and by don't do anything, I mean is their role with our facility is to assist coaches in coaching sessions, meaning like, they don't necessarily lead the ADW. The most that they'll do is lead a cool down, and that's after that they have presented on like a cool down routine and kind of the principles behind it. So our coach interns, when they come in, they're sent a 4-week onboarding process of like different videos that we have. Like, they have access to our exercise bank, our Parisi's exercise bank, the things that we send to like the colleges. They've gone through the interim lessons, the old lessons, and they've also looked at like they're like subscribed to the Parisi newsletter, and they've kind of seen like the videos from Bill and kind of what's going on. and they're given success stories, the Parisi success story book to read before coming. And then when they do come in, our interns shadow for the first up to 10 days, really, before they kind of get a feel. We just want our interns and coaches, really, when they start, to make an impact on the environment. We want them to mingle. We want them to interact. We want them to talk, let our kids get used to them, let them get used to our kids. And then each intern is assigned a site supervisor, which is one of our coaches on staff, and they have one-on-one intern development sessions with that coach, and that can be anything that the intern would like to learn. Shannon has an athletic training intern this summer, so she's working with her on different AT work. And then through our staff through our staff in-services on Fridays, they're learning more about coaching X's and O's. And then I also meet with the interns privately together, our 2 interns this summer privately for an hour, where we talk about kind of what I need from an intern on the floor, different coaching cues, different coaching styles. Here, this is how we break down the trap bar deadlift and our regressions from that. So when they're on the floor, they basically are little specialists in certain movements to start before they're really good at a lot of different things, if that makes sense. So we train our interns to be very specialized in certain needs to start. And then from there, they, and as they accumulate skills over the course of the multiple weeks that they're with us, they can become pretty good at a broad spectrum of things that we need them to do. And the most that they'll do, again, is run a cool down and assist with, like they might run a timed 5-10-5 during an evaluation or a reassessment with a coach or something like that. So that's kind of where we keep our interns, because we want them to practice coaching, and interacting with members more so than actually like running a session.
I want to just say a few things about interns. So the first thing I want to make clear is that we don't want people just hiring interns just because they think that it's free labor. Okay. Having an internship program, first of all, has to be very well structured. So you can't just like bring somebody on and say that you have an internship program if you really don't. I do have the internship program. So if any of you are interested in it, I will send it to you. However, so it's in Word. You can edit it to be specific for your own facility. But, having an intern is work. So unless you have a really well-oiled machine in your program, I would advise that you continue working on your program as opposed to getting distracted with interns. And we don't typically give interns access to all of our proprietary information. As Casey said, they don't really do too much. So we don't want them teaching classes. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of throw my 2 cents in. I think, Brennan, I believe I have sent Catalin the internship program. You can check with her, but if not, I can certainly send it to you guys as well.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Ginger, did I hope I didn't misspeak. Are the intern coaching lessons that are on the website available for interns?
They can do that, but we definitely want them signing off on our all the NDAs and everything.
Okay, I just didn't want to misspeak. I didn't want to give bad information on that.
Yeah, it's a good question because the interim certification is relatively new. So, but again, if you guys are going to be having an internship program, just check with us first, because I wouldn't really recommend that every single one in our network is ready for an internship program. So,
no, it took us almost 18 months.
Yeah, it is a lot.
And that was like with that actually being a goal.
Because remember too, if you cannot provide an intern with a kick-ass experience, you don't want to do it, because that person is walking away thinking that's how our brand is. So it puts a bad name, it gives us a bad name. I have had in our network, and I'm not going to mention where they worked, but I've had interns actually quit because it was a very bad experience for them. So we don't want that happening. Okay. All right. Anyone else have any questions for Casey at this time? All right. Well, obviously, you guys know Casey's not going anywhere, so you all have access to him. If you get on, I mean, if you guys are like me, you hang up, and then all of a sudden you're like, "Damn, I forgot to ask him this." So go ahead and contact him if you need to. This webinar was recorded, so you'll find it on the online resource center when Randy posts it. Okay. All right, guys.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Casey. Take care.